Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Floris Gelber, and to say period, well met. Before this video gets to its point, or rather its points, let me say some things beforehand. I'm obviously not a native speaker of the English language, so I'd like to apologize up front for my mangled pronunciation, and I'm also allergic, and today the poems are flying merrily, so excuse me if I go at some point. This video is about some points made on swords by a man named Nicholas Lloyd. I'd like to state that I have nothing but respect for this man because he gets to his opinions by thinking for himself and experimenting, and I think there is no better way to get to one's opinions but thinking for oneself and experimenting. So, about a year ago I saw this video about swords not going swing when you draw them, but going flop rather, and I thought it was very funny and very true too, because I never had a sword which did anything else than going flop. Now, about 1 month ago, 2 months ago, I got my hand on a new sword, made for me by my measurements. It's a bit of a fantasy sword because I'd like to prove some theses of my own, somewhat proven, somewhat disproven, as it goes. So don't be shocked. Let's say it's fantasy, yes? It's this sword. A saber-like grip and a very big and strange crossguard and a very, very wide blade. And this blade is where the trick is, I think. I'll show to you when I draw it from this beautiful linen scabbard, probably not authentic because the swords were probably worn bare, but very nice if I like to go by subway and not to interest the police too much in me. So if I draw it from this scabbard, I'll get this sound. I'll give it to you again, and the reason I did not cut this video any is to show you I didn't fiddle with the sounds any, because I didn't. Again, I hope it works another time. It's quite difficult for me because it's heavy, this sword, yes. Okay. Now this blade is very wide and very big, and it sounds like a bell when knocked on. For example, another try with a hammer. It's nonetheless a working and heavily worked sword with which I fence regularly. Okay, and obviously the swing from drawing works only with a new sword, where the hilt and the crossguard is still very firm. If the hilt isn't firm anymore, it will go plonk and doesn't sound anymore. This sword, when I go with my fingers over the blade, it already makes the sound. Okay, so what you need is not metal on metal, scratching the blade, even de-sharpening your blade. What you need is a very young sword with a white blade, which sounds anyway. Now we don't know if we cut this part, because perhaps we make this video in 2 parts, but I think we do it in 1 part now because I'm very well on the flow and the allergic isn't so bad at the moment. There's another point you made I'd like to talk about some. The point is about pommels. You said 3 things about pommels. or rather, you made a comment on 3 things said about pommels. 1, the pommel is there for grip. This is true, I agree with you. I can grip this beautiful pommel here, and it's very firm in my hand. And I can also grip it here and have very much control over it in a two-handed style. So this is true. The second point is that the pommel is made to fix the hilt. And yes, this is obvious. Yeah. The last part of the hilt will be where the hilt is fixed. The third point is about the pommel acting as a counterweight to the blade. You said the pommel does not act as a counterweight to the blade, and I'm sorry, I think this point of view is absolutely wrong. Because, for example, this is a two-handed sword, and a tailbender, and if it weighs in about here, and I couldn't use it any if it wasn't counterweighted by such a big pommel. And now it might be true that you do not need a pommel that much for a one-handed blade. And the reason you give is because with a one-handed blade you want the blade to sink, so to have power when it chops down. And the part is power is made by velocity, and a big part of power is velocity. And when you haven't a weight here and have to lift the blade over your arm, it doesn't gather velocity as fast as it needs to cut really. When I use, oh yes, now it's getting dangerous for my sealing. When I use this sword here, I have to lift quite heavily, and it doesn't get as fast as if I go here. So even with the one-handed sword, I think most of these swords have pommels. I don't want to have an axe. If I want to have an axe, I get an axe. And if I want to have a sword, I better have a pommel with a counterweight. For example, I have here another sword. Oh wow, it's a katana. And it's a katana with absolutely authentic duct taping fixing the slightly broken sheath. This katana, which goes flop by the way, this katana is even for a katana, a very unbalanced specimen without a counterweight, and it balances in about here, which isn't very good. What happens is I can swing this katana very easily with one hand, but it's hard to stop and it doesn't gather velocity as fast as a sword with a good pommel. So I think these are the 3 things I want to see in a sword. I want to see that the pommel is shaped good for good grip, if the pommel is firm and fixed, and last but most important is I want to see if the sword is balanced. Not only in the fencing AP, but also in a one-handed, two-handed or any sword. The only thing where you don't need balance is in a knife, and even there it is better to have a balanced one. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is it for not tonight but today. Greetings.